You are now experiencing Less Than Fresh, a movie podcast. Less Than Fresh is a free-form discussion of movies and other related media, so it should be assumed there are potential spoilers hiding around every corner. Consider this your official spoiler warning. This podcast is rated not safe for work and contains mild cursing. So, if you're uncomfortable with that, then you can go yourself in the and then get the out of here. This podcast is designed to be taken auditorily or optically. If you've somehow ingested it orally or rectally, please induce vomiting immediately. Now, on with the show.
All right.
Okay.
We're doing this podcast thing as we do from time to time.
On a semi-regular basis.
This is Less Than Fresh, a movie podcast. I'm Jasper Disaster.
I'm Cassidy.
Well said. And so we've...
It's a little hard to say that wrong, but...
I used to have to say it for you, and I'm sure there's been a few instances where I've found a way.
Yeah.
I mean, you believe in me, right? You believe that I could possibly do that?
Yes. I do believe that you could possibly do it. I just don't think that you have done it so far.
Yeah, I mean, you're my lifelong best friend. I hope that I know how to say your name by now.
No, you'd be surprised.
Because we is old. And I like the way the beard is coming in, man. You're almost ready to take off on the sleigh with the reindeer and the whole bit.
Okay, look, just because I'm fat, jolly, and have a beard does not mean I have to be Santa Claus.
The jury's out on the jolly part, really. Anyway, so what I wanted to do here is I know everybody, it's been a while since new episodes have come out. We've got a couple of episodes in the can, and things have been hectic in my regular life. I don't want to get into it, but there's been a hiccup in the production pipeline. Episode 6 and episode 11 have been recorded. I think the last one we recorded is honestly the best one we've ever done, where we had Destiny from Better Than Being Bored podcast on to talk about horror movies. That was so much fun.
Yes, very much so.
The Quavius Brown also makes a few cameos. Anyway, but that being said, those episodes are delayed, and I do intend to get them edited and get them out before the end of December 2024. And so I wanted to just have this be like a quick one-off filler episode, just something where we can just hang out and chat, and just something simple that doesn't require any editing, and then I can throw up on the YouTube channel.
I'm sorry, your choice of words, just something you can throw up on the YouTube channel.
Well, I mean, it depends on people's evaluation of our previous content. It may have always been vomit. I don't know. But so this is a little bit different. This is not one of our numbered episodes, and I'm calling it You, Me, and IMDb. So this is just a 2025 preview. We're going to talk about some movies that we're excited about. But real quick, before we get into 2025 movies, wanted to just talk a little bit about the podcast. We're several episodes in at this point. We're still doing it kind of half-assed. I intend in 2025 to put my whole ass into it. But seriously, I plan on putting even more of a concerted effort into making this project the best that it can be. I just want to kind of touch base with you. What do you think about where we're at with this project and where we're going?
I'm having a blast. I've actually really kind of enjoyed it so far. I mean, you know I love talking about movies, so this is kind of a dream for me.
Right.
even
So
though it was your idea, it was like you reached in and grabbed my dream and said, "Here, let me help you make it happen."
it's like I'm a big fan of the Mythbusters, and in one episode of the Mythbusters where they were doing like behind the scenes type stuff, Tori Belleci says about Adam Savage. The whole time we were working at Industrial Light and Magic, he was acting like somebody who was on a TV show. Like he had a camera following him. He just didn't have a camera following him. Now he's actually on a TV show. So I mean, I feel kind of the same way about this in that, you know, these are all conversations we'd be having anyway. The only thing is, fortunately, StreamYard makes it very easy for us to sit in front of cameras and record that and then
Make everybody
monetize
else
it.
watch it.
Hmm?
I said, make
What-
everybody else watch it.
Yeah, make everybody else watch it.
As far as where we're going, I have high hopes for some that will come up with some really interesting stuff. I definitely really enjoyed recording that episode with Destiny, and I would love to bring other people in more often because I'm sure our 2-3 viewers get sick and tired of hearing just the two of us, and so I'm sure they'd like to get somebody else in there to hear with a to just, if nothing else, break up the monotony.
Yeah,
So,
and I gotta say, I've learned some things producing these episodes because, like, I have at this point I'm really love gimmicks. Like whenever there's a gimmick that we can use as far as like a chart or something. Oh, I didn't mean that to come up right when it did, but hello, IMDb. Speaking of gimmicks, you big beautiful gimmick, you. Mwah. Uh, so using like charts, like tier lists, and doing the Nicolas Cage episode, which of course I had been
I
talking
think that's
about doing that for years. Doing that
I think
kind of a
that's our most
chart.
popular episode to date, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I haven't checked the analytics. All I know for sure is that Bo from Better Than Being Bored podcast watched it and commented on it and said he actually subscribed. So, hi, Bo.
Thank you, Bo. We love you, man.
Yeah.
I have no idea who you are, but we love you.
Let's get into the list. I have the list here. Just like that, through the magic of editing, we're wearing different clothes. We had a break in production and we were filming this part a week later. So let's just go ahead and jump into it.
Okay, we're starting with mine first. All right. So for my first choice, I technically cheated a little bit because I picked 3 and 1. But,
right at the beginning, you've completely violated the spirit of this exercise.
well, I kind of lumped them all together. I mean, I've stated this before. I'm sure I've said it in previous episodes. I've seen nearly every single MCU movie in the theater, and I'm going to continue to basically see every MCU movie in the theater. And even though ever since Endgame it has kind of gone downhill a little bit, I'm still kind of looking forward to them. I suppose if you had to twist my arm and make me pick one of the 3, I think I'd probably go with Thunderbolts. I loved a lot of these side characters, and it's kind of nice to see them get brought to the forefront. And the dynamic from the previews I've seen looks like it's going to be pretty good.
So let's explain a little bit about what it is people are looking at here. So we've got Captain America Brave New World, which is another Captain America movie. And then Thunderbolts, who are these people and what's the premise here?
So basically, these are all various side characters that were from previous movies or TV shows. We've got Bucky Barnes, who was the Winter Soldier. We have the Ghost was the villain from, I think that was the name. I don't know, the villain from Ant-Man and the Wasp. We got the Taskmaster, the villain from the Black Widow movie, the sister.
So these are movie villain, or these are comic book villains that are co-opted to work as good guys for the government.
Essentially, yes.
What are they? Some kind of Suicide Squad or something?
Yeah, in a way, I would say this would be the MCU's answer to that. Yeah, no, and then the third movie would be the Fantastic Four. I keep forgetting that we're an audio podcast also, and not just on YouTube. So, not everybody out there listening can know what I'm talking about unless I actually describe some of what's up there visually.
Right. And so you're kidding with this one, right? Because I mean, I just look at anything that says Fantastic Four on it, and I automatically associate it with whatever the opposite of a seal of quality is.
Well, so I will grant you, yes, nobody has done justice to the characters of Fantastic Four. And honestly, I've really not been a huge fan of those characters in the comic book. But seeing as how it's finally come back to the MCU and that Marvel is overseeing it, based just like the other characters that they've done movies on, that were the characters were made into a movie and the movie didn't do so well, and then the MCU got them back and they did really well because they understood the characters better. So I do have some hope for this now that Marvel is control of it, rather than somebody else. And I don't know. It's an MCU film. I'll see it.
And then if it's bad, I'll say, I told you so.
With a track record since Endgame, I kind of give it a 50-50. I mean, it's got a decent cast. Pedro Pascal, I mean, how can you... I've loved everything I've seen him in so far.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And it's a Marvel movie made by Marvel. So it's got that going for it.
Okay. And so I set for myself an interesting challenge with this because when we first set out to set up this episode, I just sent you a message that said, give me your top 10 list of movies for 2025, theatrical releases. And so so you generated your list first and your honorable mentions. And then I tried really hard not to duplicate that list. So my picks are quite a bit different from yours.
I guess one thing I wanted to qualify real quick was just to say that the way I approached this was not just theatrical releases, but films I'd actually really want to go to the theater to see. Because there's actually a couple of movies out that that are coming out that I'm like, I wouldn't mind seeing that as soon as it comes to streaming. These are movies that I really specifically want to go to the theater to see. So I just wanted to clarify that real quick.
It's been a while since we put together this list, so I put in the number 10 spot Mercy with Chris Pratt, but I don't remember what this movie is. I don't remember why I picked it.
Well, according to IMDb, it just said that a detective has to prove that he's accused of murder and he's got to prove that he's innocent. I'll be honest, it didn't really grab me. I'm iffy about Chris Pratt. Like, I enjoy some of the stuff he's in, but I don't necessarily think he's all that particularly good as an actor.
Well,
When I see a trailer, I might feel differently, but without really knowing what, just a bare bones description on IMDb, just this one didn't grab me.
it did for me apparently, and I think it's the opposite of what you just said. I think that probably what did put me over the top and think that this might be good, probably would be good, is Chris Pratt. So pretty interesting your take on that, given that he's Star Lord in the MCU.
Well, I do like him as Star Lord, but okay, so it's a case with modern Hollywood. And I mean, to a certain degree, you go back even to classic Hollywood the same way. Some actors play one part.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they do. They play the same part in every movie. There's not a lot of difference. Sometimes that part fits the movie, sometimes it doesn't. Chris Pratt tends to play a smarmy bastard. I don't really enjoy it, but sometimes it works for a movie like, say, Star Lord. Sometimes to me it just doesn't really. So it's like I can't really get behind his character and stuff. So he's not an actor that I see the name that I go, oh, he's in it. I got to see that film.
Hmm.
It just, I'm like, I can, but I don't. He's also, in all fairness, he's not one of those actors that I see, oh, they're in it. I don't really want to see that film. And there are a handful of actors out there that I really think are that bad. And I have,
Yeah.
Their name is enough to turn me off of the project.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, something about this one did grab me, so I went ahead and added it. So,
Okay.
your number 9 pick.
Yeah, Death of a Unicorn. I literally just saw the trailer for this about, let's say, maybe half an hour before we started recording this.
Uh-huh.
So it was kind of a last minute substitution. I actually originally had something else here, but A24 film. That's always a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Jenna Ortega, Paul Rudd. I mean, how can you go wrong with Paul Rudd?
Right.
From what I gather from basically a man and his daughter come to visit this rich family that own a pharmaceutical company. They wind up hitting a unicorn, like hitting an animal on the road, and it turns out to be a unicorn. Well, they go and bring the body because it's supposed to, the people that they visit live on this big nature preserve that they own all the thing, and they've turned it to a nature preserve. They bring it to them, and they discover that the unicorn does have healing properties, its body, and they're going to use it. Well, then it turns out that the unicorn was a baby unicorn, and mamas come to get her and get revenge for her death.
Oh.
And yeah, if you haven't had a chance to see the trailer, I do recommend it. It looks like it's going to be a fun movie, and it's from what I got from the trailer, it's a horror comedy. And while I'm not a huge horror fan, I do tend to like horror comedies. So
going on to my number 9, Untitled, Matt Stone, Trey Parker, Kendrick Lamar project. I don't know anything about it besides that title that isn't a title, but like Matt Stone, Trey Parker, shut up and take my money. Like, I think that they're practically printing money at this point with how popular uh, South Park is, and so it's just like I have a good feeling about this.
Well, see, I'm kind of the exact opposite. I really don't like Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Like their early stuff was kind of funny, but they kept pushing the envelope. And I get the pushing envelope thing is okay, but it got to the point where it stopped being funny and it was just being obnoxious. And I lost interest in them. And I've gotten to the point now where I have to agree partly with your statement. Matt Stone, Trey Parker, shut up and just shut up.
Got a good feeling about this, and I think that, whatever they come up with, it's going to be worth a look.
Well, I reserve the right to change my mind later once I see a preview.
Yeah.
There have been movies that just when I first heard about them, just by a base description was like, no. And then I see an actual preview for it, and I'm like, oh wait, this might actually be interesting. So
yeah.
But as it stands right now, yeah, I'm not interested in the slightest.
Okay. Moving on, your number 8 pick.
Ballerina. So John Wick spinoff. I don't really know what better way to say it. If you like the John Wick movies, this looks really good. If you don't like John Wick, yeah, probably are not going to like this movie. And according to the trailers, there are Keanu Reeves actually is cameoing as John Wick in this, and it's supposed to be, I think, set before John Wick, the original movie, when he was still active before he retired. So,
okay.
I don't know.
It would be weird if he cameoed in this as Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah. No, that's a completely different movie. Now, for this one, it was pretty much they had me at, spinoff of John Wick. I'm like, I didn't even need to hear anything else. Just, okay, I'll give it a shot. I really, really enjoy like certain action films. And I really loved everything that those, like the directors and stunt coordinators from John Wick have done.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, to me, they've got the Midas touch. If they're working on a project, I'm pretty interested in giving it a shot. I'm sure I'm going to get let down eventually, but so far I've been happy with everything. So
my number 8, Dirty Dancing 2. I'm just a big fan of the original. Like it's, everybody in my family loves that movie. And seen it like dozens of times. Didn't see Dirty Dancing Havana Nights. Did not see that one. So I'm interested to see. This one stars Jennifer Grey, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first movie. Yeah, I might see this when it comes out to streaming, but it didn't really have a grip on me. Like, I kind of even forgot Dirty Dancing Havana Nights existed until I was Googling this one to kind of look it up, and that popped up for Dirty Dancing 2. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this thing came out a long time ago. Never saw it. It just feels wrong without Patrick Swayze. How can you do a legacy sequel of Dirty Dancing without Patrick Swayze?
I don't know. But I believe in the process. I believe in the actors, and so I think Jennifer Grey wouldn't have signed on for it if they didn't already have a quality script. And I think that, I don't think this is a cash grab legacy sequel. I think they I do think that it's coming out because they wanted a legacy sequel, but I think that they probably took the time to do something half decent to to honor the original movie. So your next pick, 28 years later.
Yes, the third or fourth, depending on how you look at it, Um, I don't know if you saw that meme I posted on our Facebook. There was a movie called 28 Days
Oh
with
yeah,
Sandra Bullock about alcoholism and getting sober.
right. Mm-hmm.
And so the meme is 28 days later, 28 months later. Or is it,
Mm-hmm.
no, weeks? Is it months? I don't remember. And it's about how Danny Boyle really veered with the last two, you know, in the series. But yeah, so third movie in the series. Never thought this was ever going to happen. You know, there had been talk about it forever, but saw a preview for it and it looks really good too. So I am happy. But yeah, as soon as I heard that it was actually happening, it was on my list to watch. I didn't even need to see the trailer for this.
So it was 28 days later. Then it was 28 weeks later, and this is 28 years later.
Years later, yeah. So they skipped months later.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, you know, in 280 years when they come out with 28 decades later.
That if I'm around, I'll probably see it. It's this is one of those exceptions because I generally, like I've stated before, I generally don't care for horror movies. I just, but I'd happen. I don't even remember how I wound up seeing the first one, but I thought it was really well done. It was really interesting. And I think it might have actually got me started on my soft spot for zombie movies because I tend to like that's one of the few exceptions to horror is that I actually kind of do like zombie movies if they're well done.
Yep.
So, and I liked the fresh take on it, the whole not being a supernatural undead, but more of a they're not technically zombies. They're just infected people with a rage inducing disease. So I don't know. Like the first two movies, looking forward to seeing this one.
And then my number 7 pick, Mission Impossible 8 Final Reckoning. Sorry about that. Final Reckoning. Dead Reckoning was the last one because they decided to make it a 2-part finale. I don't I do and I don't like this. I don't like that it's a 2-part finale because that one, the one that you haven't seen yet, number 7, drags. It drags on and it's so obvious that it's like they took filler out to make it a, you know, all one movie and then they put the filler back in to make it 2 movies, or maybe stuffed in more filler to make it 2 movies.
I honestly have yet to see a movie that they broke up into 2 parts, with the exception of Dune, that I felt needed to be 2 parts. Like it most of them, it's just a bunch of extra filler bullcrap that is not necessary and ruins it. Like I could have seen if The Hobbit, they went with their original plan of doing it 2 books or 2 movies, because it's a pretty thick book and so forth. Instead, they went with 3 and added a whole bunch of crap they didn't need to, which just kind of ruined the whole thing.
Yeah. So even though this is on my list, there's kind of 2 reasons, the 2 pain points that I'm going to discuss here. One is that it is 2 movies and doesn't need to be 2 movies, and the other is that you could call you could call these movies dead retconning and final retconning, because like really it feels like, now I don't want to spoil anything for you really because you know you haven't seen number 7, but it feels like both with that movie and with Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise is trying to reinvent his old characters to make them more likable and more relatable. I think at some point he got to thinking about what his legacy is going to be in movies, and like, you know, wants Maverick and wants
Ethan Hunt.
Ethan Hunt to be a likable, affable sort of guy, and both of those characters were not meant to be an everyman type character. They were meant to be larger than life.
Um, yeah, well, like you said, I haven't seen the first one, the Dead Reckoning.
Mm.
This movie almost made it on my list as a honorable mention, simply because I'm looking forward to it finally coming out, so I can finally watch number 7, because I refused to watch it before I had the whole story, because I get really annoyed with these whole 2-part movie things. So
Right.
um, so but I mean, yeah, I from what I saw of like I did see Top Gun Maverick, so I see the point you're trying to make where he's trying to soften some of his characters that were like get rid of some of those rough edges on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And and it doesn't fit, it doesn't work. It seems like something that Tom Cruise wants, but it's not really what's in the best interest of keeping the characters what those characters should be.
yes, this is the sequel to Prey, even though it's not a direct sequel. It's I don't know. They call it, I don't know. I've heard it called a sequel. It's more just a follow up. It's by the same director, Dan Trachtenberg.
Oh, Dan Trachtenberg. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know if you've had a chance to see Prey, but it is most definitely the best Predator movie since the original Predator. And
Wow.
I would say, I might even say it was better than the original Predator. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I thought he did a phenomenal job. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this new one. And I believe it's supposed to be set in the Old West. Like a little bit, well, yeah, the Prey, well, I guess you could say was set in the Old West, but it was supposed to be more before the white settlers came. There was a few trappers and so forth. But it was mostly just an untouched land by Native Americans. This one is supposed to be more like a Western type, where the settlers have come, and it's not a direct sequel, though I've heard there's some talk about them making a direct sequel to Prey.
So yeah, I probably would have seeked that out and watched it if I'd known it was Dan Trachtenberg who directed it. Dan Trachtenberg, former co-host of the Totally Rad Show.
Knew you were going to work that in.
I mean, that's where I know him from, and so it's just really great to see somebody that I know of, that I knew was coming up as a director, actually see his opportunity. Like, we don't know Dan Trachtenberg personally, we don't know any of the guys from the Totally Rad Show personally, but I mean, for me, that show was a big inspiration to get into media and produce some content. But it feels very much like when you see like 10 Cloverfield Lane and his name is at the end of the movie, it feels very much like a friend of yours, like somebody you went to art school with or something. Yeah. It is making it big in the industry.
Yeah. That's part of what attracted me to this. Is like, I am a fan of the Predator series. I've seen all the movies. I've read some of the comics. I haven't kept up with them or anything, but I do find it's an interesting franchise. And then when I found out it was also a Dan Trachtenberg film, I've liked everything I've seen him do. And he's a name that if I hear he's involved, okay, I'm interested now. It's there are certain actors, certain directors that'll grab my attention. He's become one of the directors that definitely does. So that's definitely looking forward to see what. And the fact that I've seen a film by him that has dealt with the characters of the Predator, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what else he can do with it, because I've already seen what he can do with it. Now I want to see where else can you take this, because you did an awesome job the first time. Can you follow that up? So yeah.
When this first showed up on the list, I was like, is this a sequel to that Predator movie we went and saw at the theater? Like the one where they had like the predators, and then there was the Predator Hunter, like the bigger predator that was chasing the Predator, and then
the Shane, the one by Shane Black, the Predator. Yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah.
The movie where they weaponized autism.
Yes.
Like, I'm usually a big Shane Black fan, but not one of his better outings. Not at all.
I don't care for that. I have a family member that has autism, and I don't like when they use that as a plot point to, if they want to make somebody seem like they have superpowers or special capabilities or whatever. They start off autistic and like potentially nonverbal or whatever, and then they grow into whatever their superpower is.
It's unfortunate that there's no, or at least I'm unaware of any real decent representation in film and television for autism. It's like you said, they always use it as a crutch to make them either a reason to make them as socially awkward as they possibly can be, or to give them, like you said, some sort of superpower. And
and in the case of the Power Rangers movie, they actually did both. Made him as awkward as possible and gave him superpowers. Moving on to my number 6. This is one that honestly, like, I didn't do a whole lot of research aside from, like, the episode's called You, Me, and IMDb. It's because we went off of the IMDb 2025 releases list. And so I didn't do a whole lot besides reading what was on IMDb. But this one captured my attention enough, I actually went and tracked down a trailer and watched it. This might worked out better somewhere higher on my list, because I'm really excited to see this. So you've got Rami Malek. He's an analyst for the CIA, and his wife gets killed by some shady characters, and so he says, train me, give me a gun, give me money, let me go track down and kill the people who killed my wife. And they said, no way. And then he goes rogue, and they can't track him because he developed most of the tracking software and stuff, and the procedures for using it and things. And so it's really interesting how, it becomes a cat and mouse sort of thing, as well as him hunting down his wife's killers.
I saw the trailer for this, and it looks pretty interesting. It is definitely one that I want to see. It almost made it onto my honorable mentions, but like I said, I kind of thought about, this is what I want to see in the theater. this is something I would definitely see as soon as it comes to streaming. But I just don't really have the urge to go out to see it in the theater. Though I love in that trailer, I mean, it is essentially, you're not a killer, you can't do this. Oh yeah, hold my beer.
Yeah, right.
Let me show you. So it does look like a pretty good movie. I find it interesting. I just I'll probably wait till it comes to streaming before I get around to watching it. And I've been digging Rami Malek as an actor. Like I've enjoyed pretty much everything I've seen him in. So
yeah, I liked him on Mr. Robot. I liked him in the Queen movie,
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's starting to become one of the names that, like, oh, he's in that. You know, it's really starting to pique my interest when I hear he's involved in a project.
You're number 5, Novocaine.
Okay, so like I said, I love action, a certain type of action film where it's a lot of over the top, and especially if there's a bit of a quirky sense of humor to it.
Mm-hmm.
Man basically kind of works for a bank, goes out on a date, and just completely connects and basically makes the love of his life with a teller that starts working at the bank too. The day after the bank gets robbed and they take her as a hostage. And he basically goes to rescue her, which the thing that makes this a little bit more unique and entertaining is that he has a rare nerve condition where he does not feel pain. He still takes damage, but he doesn't feel any pain from it. So it's kind of his superpower.
Right.
And it looks hilarious and kind of badass. There's in the trailer, there's this scene where he takes his hand, like his fist, and slams them down on broken glass. So he has all these jagged pieces of glass sticking out of his hand just before he goes to go into a fist fight with somebody, because he turns his hands into a more deadlier weapon because he can't feel the pain. So action comedies, love them, and this one looks great. And like I said, I only watched the first season and a half of The Boys, but I'm really digging Jack Quaid as an actor. So, Boys kind of lost me after about half a season. It just, I don't know, story just wasn't there for me anymore. But
my number 5 pick, the Day the Earth Blew Up. Now, I did look at a trailer for this one too, and so I'm an animation fan. I have an art school degree in animation, and just kind of like absorb anything from the genre. So like they're coming out with a Looney Tunes movie. Of course, I'm gonna watch it. Of course, I want to see it. Am I disappointed that we didn't get the Wile E. Coyote versus Acme movie? Yeah, I wish we'd gotten that instead of this, honestly, because some of the jokes that are in this are kind of lowbrow, like low hanging fruit type things, like butt jokes and things like that. But I will still take a fully animated Looney Tunes movie with a couple of butt jokes or fart jokes in there, rather than not having the movie at all. And this is one that stars Porky Pig and Donald Duck and Daffy Duck. God damn it. Porky Pig and Donald Duck, that would be Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't that already happen?
Yeah, Porky Pig and Daffy Duck, which are, kind of, depending on how you look at it, kind of second fiddle characters. So it's kind of interesting that we have a Looney Tunes movie with no bugs in it. So uh, yeah, I'm excited to see it.
I'm too bitter over. I'll admit it. I am too bitter over Wile E. Coyote versus Acme to give this a fair shot. Like, I don't know if they would have waited like another year or so, maybe I would have calmed down enough. But I can't objectively look at this. I watched the trailer and it just irritated me. So,
Like, I mean, knowing how what the animation time frames look like in order to get something like this um out to theaters, even with digital ink and paint and roto and all kinds of things that they can do these days, that's still, this had to probably be in production before uh Wile E. Coyote versus Acme got scrapped.
yeah. I I'll be honest, I find it hard, like even movies that I really want to see, I often find it hard to support when I find out it's a Warner Brothers film because of Zaslav. It's just, I don't like the man. I don't like his decisions. I don't like what he's doing. And I don't know, he might be a nice guy in real life and everything. I just don't like him as a businessman. And I
Right.
don't appreciate what he's doing to that studio. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I don't know. I also never really had that big of a soft spot for Looney Tunes in general, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically Daffy or Porky Pig. You know, they were not my favorite characters. So, and maybe, like if it was a because like I loved Wile E. Coyote. I always kind of felt sorry for him, despite the fact that most of everything that went wrong for him was his own stupidity. I think that's probably why I felt sorry for him. So, yeah, this movie just doesn't grab me. I, I might watch it when it comes to Max because I'm sure it will eventually. Or I don't know, somebody really wants to go see it and they offer to pay for my ticket. I won't say no. Um, but I have no desire to run out and see it in the theater.
Okay, fair enough. Moving forward, your number 4 pick, 17.
Yes, sci-fi comedy where um, set up in the future, and I mean it's hard to describe. Involves like cloning, where the the guy basically gets himself cloned. He like signs up for a program where he gets cloned and his body gets like recycled somehow, and then it comes to the point where somehow one of his he gets cloned before he dies. So I mean it was kind of similar to Moon in that sense, except it's more comedic, and it's like the basically the law, it's set up where like the law says that if more than one clone exists uh, at the same time, then they violate the law and they're all killed, and no more clones. So
Right.
it
So
I don't
this
know.
is
It's like
different. Like
you
in
got to see the
Moon,
trailer. It's so hard to describe.
in Moon, there was one clone at a time, and the other clones existed, but the clone was never supposed to know about the other clones. In this, they're much more upfront with him. They're like, you sign on for this job where you never actually die. It's kind of like, like if he gets injured, that part of his body is regenerated. If he gets killed, his whole body gets regenerated and his consciousness gets put in that new body. And it just uh goes on like that. And so he never can get free of this job. He can never, he can never quit or be fired from this job because he can never die. So he's permanently stuck in this job. And I find this fascinating because as a thought experiment, because like you and I in private conversations have talked about like what it would be like if there was more than one of you. And me being the optimist, I've always said, oh yeah, we'd get along great together. Me and the other me's, we'd form a team, we'd solve more complex problems faster because we'd be working as a team, stuff like that. And when I posed the question to you, you were like, yeah, I don't really think I'd like myself if I met myself.
Yeah, I've acknowledged I got a lot of rough edges, quirks, and habits that irritate people.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried changing, but it's hard for me to do. I honestly am often surprised that people put up with my crap as much as they do, because I totally admit that if I was cloned and I ran into another copy of me, I would probably strangle myself because I wouldn't put up with the crap that people seem to want to put up with me. I try to keep that in mind when I do things. I don't always succeed. Thank you, by the way. I just take this opportunity. I don't know how you put up with me sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I lose my temper with you. But yeah, but that's the sort of thing I thought of when I watched this trailer, because you sent me this trailer
oh yeah,
before we even started working on this episode. And it's interesting that what they show in the movie trailer is not him working together with the others of him to try and escape and be free and live live the rest of his life, and this thing and that thing. No, they're like fighting and killing each other.
yeah. Well, got to be down to just one of them, or else they all go. So, uh, yeah, and I gotta say, I'm really, I don't know, I guess this list is full of actors like this. I'm starting to get to the point where I want to sit up and take notice if I hear that Robert Pattinson's in it. I mean, this is such a far cry, or at least in the trailers, it looks like such a far cry from what he did in Twilight. I was like, this man really can't act.
Mm-hmm.
you never would know it based on that first film. So,
Right.
and from what I've seen him in, this also seems a lot more different than anything else he's done before. At least that I'm aware of. I don't think I've ever really seen him in a comedy. I think he's always done more straight stuff, and this is definitely a lot more comedic in tone.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think this might be his first attempt at a comedy.
Well, from the trailer, it looks like it's going to be a really good attempt.
Yeah. My number 4 is Cleaner. So this movie steals all the Die Hard from Die Hard, as the guys in CinemaSins would say. You got Daisy Ridley. She's former army washout. I guess I did watch a lot more trailers than I give myself credit for, because I did watch the trailer for this also. So you've got Daisy Ridley. She's window washer cleaner, and she's on the outside of the building when chick goes down on the inside of the building, and so then she makes her way back into the building, and John McClane's the whole situation. Yeah, looks pretty badass.
You would think that being such a huge diehard fan, that I would absolutely love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't even finish watching the trailer. I started it, got a little bit into it, and I'm like, oh, another Die Hard club. Yay. I'm like, yeah, not for me. I,
Have you ever seen Paul Blart Mall Cop?
no. I generally tend to avoid Kevin James movies because they disappoint. I hate to
I
see the waste of potential.
mm, I so I don't feel like I'm ruining anything by spoiling that movie for you, but that movie, like
By all means, go ahead.
I took forever to see it myself, and it was on one day when I had nothing else to do. So yeah, think about that for a second, man. All the movies that you encourage me to slash require me to watch, and then I instead of watching those, I watched Paul Blart Mall Cop. Um, but Paul Blart Mall Cop is a Die Hard clone. Like the mall is taken over, and he's got to do uh, stuff to save the day. And he even does things like follow the bad guys around. And when he hears them say their names, write their names down on his arm. And like there's one scene where he tries to climb through an air conditioning duct. Um, and all kinds of like there's stuff that when you watch that movie, you're like, did they seriously try to make a Die Hard movie? And so, uh, from that perspective, it's actually somewhat funny. But I mean, you and me, we went to the movie theater. In the theater, we watched Skyscraper, starring The
Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah.
I consider this, okay. So the the movie that I have playing in my head, the movie that my brain is taking the trailer and extrapolating out the rest of the movie. Like that movie in my head is better than Skyscraper was. So I I have I have kind of high hopes for this.
Um, I don't. Uh, I'll probably see it anyways sometime if it comes to a streaming service I have, and if it's on there, it'll go on my list, and someday I might go, oh, okay, let's watch this. But I
Mm.
honestly just not really. And like you said, it's kind of funny. As much as I love the original Die Hard, um, I watch it every year on Christmas Eve. So
Hmm.
um, this just didn't grip me. I think
There was
it's
even one part in the trailer where Daisy Ridley's character is on the skid outside the window, and one of the chains on the window washing skid breaks, and she ends up sliding down to the other end, and then she's calling 911, and they're like, "What's your emergency?" She's like, "Are you kidding me?" And it felt so much like she should be saying, I'm not trying to order a fucking pizza, you know,
yeah.
like that. Yeah. So I mean, it's so die hard that it's ridiculous, um, but yeah, I'm still here for it. Let's talk about
Okay.
this real quick. Just to mention, because I like you did the extra work of putting the dates on these images, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, this is coming out 221, so that's February.
Yeah.
January and February used to be the dead zone for movies. They used to be like the dumping ground where they put things that the studios didn't believe in, but they still had to put it out so that they can make back some kind of money.
Yeah.
You and I, I don't know if we've ever talked about this in the show. I don't think we have. That's why I'm bringing it up. You and I have talked about it, and you've expressed the opinion that it's not really so much that way anymore. The January and February aren't really the dumping ground or the dead zone.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I know I've said that, and that was probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago when I said that. I'm starting to change my mind a little bit. I kind of feel like January still is. February is getting to be a bit more of where they're like, I'm not sure if it's gonna do good, or I'm not I guess the way to put it is like January is when they put out the films that they have no confidence in. February is the films that they have very little confidence in. Like that, there's a little bit there.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, there's some sort of like romantic theme. Like,
yeah, because of course
because then February. But other than that, because I don't know, it's like they do put out a lot of stuff that doesn't really seem to be all that exciting and good in February much anymore. But every once in a while, you'll get a really good hidden gem. Like if I remember correctly, Deadpool came out tail end of January, beginning of February. The very first Deadpool.
I think it actually, I want to say it premiered on Valentine's Day.
You know what? Let me look this up real quick on IMDb. I want to know when that was released. February 12th, 2016. So just before Valentine's Day.
Okay, gotcha.
And then I think Deadpool 2 was released about that time also in February.
I think so. Your number 3 pick, Love Hurts.
No, it was May. Yes, so this is, like I said, a little bit of a romantic theme into it. They tend to release those on, I don't know. Then again, I think it looks like it's going to be awesome. But maybe the studio doesn't have much faith in it. I don't really know.
I mean, I don't know how they could not. I mean, like the cast that they have for it, and I'm seeing here from the producers of Nobody. I don't know Violent Night, but Nobody, like that's like
the Violent Night was the Christmas movie they released like a year or two ago with David Harbour as Santa Claus, where he basically it's like a John Wick kind of thing. He gets I guess the way you could call it more of a Die Hard clone in the fact that he's delivering presents to a mansion when this rich family is taken hostage, and he has to save them.
Oh, that's right. I remember you told me about this one. Yeah. You telling me about it is the only reference I have for that. Otherwise, that movie flew completely under my radar.
I heard about it when it first came out to theaters. I didn't really know much about it, other than a friend that was like they really wanted to go see it. I didn't think much about it. When it finally came to video, I had the opportunity to get it checked out from the library. And I watched it, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually really good. It's funny, good action, and a decent storyline. Though it's got John Leguizamo in it, and I really don't feel like it was one of his better performances. He kind of hammed it up a little bit in that movie, and I don't think that quite fit. That was the only sour note really for me in the whole movie. But yeah, so yeah, again, this looks like that John Wick style of action type film. Um, I can never pronounce his name. I always butcher it. It was the actor that played Short Round and Data from Goonies and Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. Took that like 20-year break, and then he just recently got back to acting again and has been hitting it out of the park left and right. He was in that Everywhere.
Everything Everywhere All at
Where
Once.
once, yeah. So that played, and again, this is kind of a John Wick clone, and it uses the same premise. Everyday guy winds up getting dragged back into his previous life when he wasn't just an everyday Joe Schmo. Um, you know, a former hitman killer trying to retire to live a normal everyday life, trying to become a successful uh, number one real estate agent when issues from his previous life come back to haunt him. But the action looks spectacular and it looks really, really funny. And yeah, I'm not going to try and butcher his name, but if he's in a project, I'm interested.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about it in a previous episode. The stuff that you see in the trailer, because he's so like mild mannered and apologetic, but still has to kick ass in order to protect himself. It kind of reminds me of stuff that I saw in Upgrade, where the guy is like watching his own body kick other people's ass, and he's like, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." It's like that. It's like he has to kick these people's asses because they're trying to kick his ass, but at the same time he feels bad about it. But yeah, the acting and the stunt choreography and everything does look phenomenal. The trailer does what a trailer is supposed to do, and then when you get to the end of the trailer, you're I feel like ideally every movie studio would like for people to have this reaction, which is to say, I want to see that movie right now.
Yeah.
Like and that this trailer did that for me. And it's funny because like one of the previous trailers that I remember having that experience with was the first time I saw the trailer for Everything Everywhere All at Once. That I was like, yes, that now. And then when I did see it, I wound up loving it more than I thought I was going to. So yeah,
it's hard to believe that the more I think about it, honestly, I think this should have been my number 2 pick instead of my number 3. Because the more I think about it, I'm like, I really want to see this movie.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it more when we get to your number 2 pick.
I was gonna say it's almost like if my number 1 pick, like this would have been my number 1, should have been my number 1 pick if it wasn't for I've been waiting on the number 1 pick for quite a while. So I'm excited to hear that they're releasing it this year. But yeah, we'll get to it. But yeah, you get to the last couple, and it was kind of tough to decide which order I most wanted to see them. And now that I've had time to sit and think about it, I'm starting to second guess myself a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's see what your number 3 pick is.
They're remaking The Naked Gun with Liam Neeson, which I find especially funny given that when Leslie Nielsen died, there was a lot of stuff going on in the news where people were confused about who it was had died, whether it was Leslie Nielsen or Liam Neeson. And so now you have Liam Neeson taking over a role that was made famous by Leslie Nielsen. So it's like it's even more confusing than it was before. I liked the originals, and I'm excited that they're doing something with the property, and I'm excited to see what it is they do with the property.
Okay. Yeah, this one not really look. And like again, when I see a preview, I might feel differently, but as of right now, I just this is one of those ones where I'm like, really, uh, you guys are actually making this. I do really enjoy the original Naked Gun. I enjoyed the other. Was it 22 and a half and 33 and a third? Or no, it's 2.5 and then 33 and a third. There's always those certain classic movies where you just kind of feel like, no, this is untouchable. You shouldn't remake it. It's just leave well enough alone. It was perfection the first time.
Right.
And I kind of feel like this is one of those films like that. I can't imagine them being able to remake it and do it justice. And then on top of that, I honestly don't really feel like Liam Neeson has the comedic chops. Unless they're trying to do this as a more serious, and I couldn't imagine that. Since it was already it was a movie based off of the TV show Police Squad, which was a comedy parody of TV police procedurals at the time. So
right,
to sit there and turn around and then try to make it serious, that's just a horrible idea.
I'm sure they're not going to do that.
I really can't see anybody else at all other than Leslie Nielsen in the part of Frank Drebin. So it's
I don't know. I mean, I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from on all of those points. I mean, and especially like the thing about there's certain properties that shouldn't be touched. I mean, I like about once every 6 months there's some troll that shows up in like Back to the Future fan Facebook groups and on Reddit and stuff like that, and says that they're recasting Back to the Future and they're casting Tom Holland as Marty McFly, which is which always makes some people actually interested, because like if anybody was gonna play that character, Tom Holland would probably be the only decent choice, like if you were even going to consider somebody else to play Marty McFly. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Those movies don't need to be remade. They were made perfectly the first time. I just don't have that tight of a connection to the Naked Gun movies. I'm able to see it as a comedy property, as that IP, and I'm interested to see what they do with it. Really, Liam Neeson, I don't know what he could do with it except for like do like a parody of himself and be like, I've got a particular set of skills, and do that sort of thing somewhere in the movie, and then instead of kicking ass, royally effing it up. I don't know what they could do, but I'm excited that they're doing something with the property. And like I say, I don't have that kind of emotional attachment. Like it was perfect the first time, you shouldn't touch it.
Well, again, it boils down to, like we said earlier, you tend to be a lot more optimistic about the potential of movies. I tend to be a lot more cynical about it. So,
right.
And I just want to state for the record, remaking Back to the Future is a horrible idea. But I do have to say, if they did do such a horrific thing, I couldn't think of a better actor than Tom Holland to play that part. He would be the close. I mean, it's forever Michael J. Fox's part. No one will ever touch his performance. The closest one to come to I could ever think of even coming to doing remotely close to a good job would be Tom Holland, but because he can just kind of do that innocent wonder so well. But yes, no, that'd be a horrible and terrible idea.
Yeah,
Hollywood, if you're listening, do not do it. I repeat, do not do it.
And that goes double for me. Let's see here. Your number 2 pick, Tron Rs. So this is a pirate take on it.
No. Ares.
Oh.
I honestly don't know much about it. I have been a huge fan of the. That's why after more consideration, I'm thinking I probably should have put this a little bit lower on the list. But I've been a huge fan of the Tron series since the original Tron back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. I loved that movie as a kid. I was so excited, absolutely loved Tron Legacy. It was the best Daft Punk video I've ever seen. I don't care if that's what they say, it's true. But I really enjoyed it, and so I was excited. I was waiting. I've been waiting for this ever since they made Tron Legacy. They were talking about doing another sequel. The only negatives I have towards it is that, from what I understand, it's not necessarily going to be exactly a direct sequel. Like, Sam Flynn is not. Some of the stuff they kind of set up in Tron Legacy is not being followed through here. The Olivia Wilde's character, and I can't remember the actor's name, but the one that played Sam Flynn, his son, Flynn's son. Yeah, from what I understand, they're not in this movie at all. So that's a little disappointing. But I love Tron, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, despite a few misgivings.
My number 2 is Karate Kid Legends. So this is really like, I think it's really cool that they're doing this. Like, there were the Karate Kid movies, and then there was the next Karate Kid, and then they did the reboot Karate Kid where you have Jackie Chan teaching the kid Taekwondo, I think, the whole time. So, like, it was the Karate Kid, but there was no actual karate being taught.
It's Kung Fu, not Taekwondo.
Kung Fu, okay. So they had all of those movies, and then separate from all of that, there was How I Met Your Mother, and there was this whole thing where Barney wanted to meet the hero of Karate Kid, and then he got to meet Ralph Macchio, and he's like, no, not him. I want to meet the hero of Karate Kid. Daniel Russo is a guy who did an illegal move in a karate tournament in order to win, and he took the victory away from Cobra Kai. And so it was like, there was this whole thing about like how Daniel was the bad guy, and so this sparked a whole like discussion, debate, and like kind of revitalized people's interest in the Karate Kid franchise. And then they came out with the series Cobra Kai, which was originally, I want to say, on like Yahoo TV, when they tried to do a streaming service through Yahoo. And when Yahoo TV folded, Netflix bought it and did a couple of extra seasons of it. And so, did you see Cobra Kai at all?
No, I never got into it. I've heard people talk about it, and I think it's on my watch later list, but
Mm-hmm.
I get it's sometimes hard for me to get into television shows. I just get burned out. Like I don't know how many shows I started watching that I never finished because I got burned out on them, because it seems to me like television shows tend to either be too short and not tell the whole story, which drives me insane because the show got canceled before it could get finished, or it drags on longer because it's popular enough. It drags on and on and on, and long past what felt like should have been a good natural ending, to where I just start to get bored with it. But I've heard it's really good, and so someday I might get around to watching.
Yeah, my opinion, it is really good. And so this is supposed to continue the storyline from where they had it in Cobra Kai. And so you've got Ralph Macchio playing Daniel Russo. You've got Jackie Chan, I assume, playing his character from that version of Karate Kid. So it's like
Mr. Chin. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're kind of unifying the different universes in the Karate Kid cinematic universe. And so I mean, I'll say it again. I'm just interested to see where they go with this.
Yeah, I'll admit, when I first saw this listing when I started researching for this episode to make my picks, I saw this and I'm like, oh, yay, another Karate Kid movie. Move on. I'm like, the most I did was I was like, okay, well, it's a little interesting that they're connecting the original series with the 2000 and I think it's 2016, somewhere in there, reboot. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting, but still, I'm not really interested in this. I finally saw a trailer earlier today. Okay, yeah, this might actually be worth watching. It looks like it might be pretty good. So, not enough that I necessarily want to run out to the theater and watch it. But again, once it hits streaming, it's probably something I might make the effort to watch. So I tell you right now, the trailer, when done right, trailers can really make a difference. They've sold me on a lot of movies that I normally would have avoided. So.
It's crazy to think about because like we're this far into the series with the with the Karate Kid, and this would be the only Karate Kid movie I've ever seen in the theater. If I go see it in the theater, like
true. I don't think I've seen any of the Karate Kid movies in the theater.
Moving on.
I've seen 1, 2, and 3, and the reboot. I have not seen the next Karate Kid.
No, I haven't either. No, I haven't seen next Karate Kid, but I have seen Cobra Kai. Moving on, your number 1 pick, Nobody 2.
Yes. So I believe it was 2022. This came out same year that Godzilla versus Kong came out, because I remember I had seen heard about it and saw a preview it. And I was like, okay, this might be cool. And I had time to kill one day after work, so I decided to go catch a movie. And I'm like, all right, I'll go see this. And I loved it. I think it's an awesome film. It is a John Wick clone. Everyday average guy trying to live a normal life runs across the mafia, basically organized crime. They try to basically mess with him and discover that he wasn't always an everyday normal guy. He used used to be a essentially a cleaner. He was a government operative that went in and took care of things when stuff needed to disappear. And I just love the fact that Bob Odenkirk looks like you wouldn't think twice if you saw him on the street that
Right.
oh, I could take that guy.
And certainly you would never expect Better Call Saul to be able to kick ass.
Right. And he, completely, for lack of a better term, that's exactly it. Completely kicks ass throughout the entire movie. And it's just, I absolutely loved it. I think it was probably my favorite movie of that year. I don't know. Was that the year Free Guy came out?
I think so.
If it was the same year, then it wasn't okay. I liked Free Guy better, but this would have been my number two, or the original Nobody would have been my number two. So I have been waiting. Like they started talking about doing a sequel to it almost immediately, and I have been waiting desperately for this movie. I'm like, this, so when I found out that it's finally coming out, I was like, yes, I want to see this so bad. Yeah. Number one pick. I love the first one. I think this one's going to be just as good, maybe even better. You never know. And it really is like so atypical of the parts that Bob Odenkirk plays. So
yeah, and I'm a big Bob Odenkirk fan, especially since Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, just did a phenomenal job as that character, and so I'm look forward to see what he does with the part.
Yes. I mean, this, like, I haven't even, like, right now I'm feeling antsy because I'm like, I want to watch that movie right now. Why is this movie not out?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the feeling I had when I first saw the Deadpool trailer, when I saw the trailer for Love Hurts. Yeah, can I pay you more money to see it now? Like, if I do that, will you just give it to me? Yeah, so that leads us into my number one pick. My number one pick is Tron Ares.
Hey, this looks familiar.
Yeah, well, I mean, they already made 2 other Tron movies. No, this was on the list before. This is my number one, and when I somehow missed it when I was going through Steven's list, and but then when we talked about it and discovered that it was number 2 on yours and number 1 on mine, I was like, I can't not have that as my number 1. I love Tron Legacy. I love it so much. I have an emotional connection to that movie because it was in production at the time that I was in art school. And so me and a bunch of other animation and computer design nerds, we went nuts for this shit. Like when it was in production, we followed the like any information we could get about the production. And then I remember there were guys in classes, they were like, hey, I want to figure out how to use Maya to make a functional light cycle like the ones that I've seen that they're going to have in Tron Legacy, and it would, if you look at, a lot of people look at the original Tron and say it was a tech demo for Disney, for them to incorporate their model making and their animation and 3D computer effects that went beyond what even the makers of the computers themselves thought they could do. And so in a lot of senses that was a tech demo. In a lot of senses Tron Legacy is also a tech demo, but it was like it spoke so much to what we wanted to do that even in the sense as just a visual spectacle, as a visual effects showcase, it was massive. But then you take the story and lay that on top of it, and it's a story that I think meshes very well with the original Tron story, and like fleshes out that world. Like we get to revisit that world that Kevin Flynn was in and see how it's evolved in the time since it was first created. And I love this movie, the Tron Legacy movie. I watch it once every 6 months. When I bought a Blu-ray player, I made sure to upgrade from DVD to Blu-ray version of Tron Legacy so that I had that on hand. And so, yes, I've wanted this movie ever since uh I the first time I saw Tron Legacy. It was like let's go, let's do the next one. But Disney wanted to drag their feet. They said that Tron Legacy underperformed. They said that the animated series based on Tron Legacy underperformed, and that they wanted to see that there was a dedicated fan base, that would actually pay money for more Tron content. And I don't know what changed between then and now, but finally they got off their asses and they made something new in the Tron cinematic universe.
Yeah, you bring up that Tron animated series, and I'm like, that was kind of a disappointment because it was really, really good and very interesting. And then they just, it's like Firefly, a really great show, and then just gets canceled without finishing up any of the story. And it just leaves you hanging like, okay, what happened to these characters? How did they get from this point to the Tron because it was a prequel to the Tron Legacy movie. So, how did they get to that point? I had kind of put that disappointment out of my head until you mentioned it. So thank you very much. But yeah, I'm now, like I said earlier, I'm really excited to see this one too.
Yeah. Shall we do a roundup of honorable mentions?
Works for me.
Okay. Your honorable mentions.
Okay, so we've got a remake of The Running Man, directed by Edgar Wright. I enjoyed the original Running Man movie. I have not actually had the opportunity to read Stephen King's book, The Running Man. From what I understand, there are some considerable differences because, like, Hollywood is usually horrible about adapting stuff. But I always thought the concept was really good, and that was actually a movie that was on my list of movies I might like to remake someday. I love Edgar Wright as a director. I've enjoyed everything I've seen him direct. I would have loved to have seen his take on Ant-Man. I want the ability to transfer to an alternate dimension so I can find the one where he actually made that movie so I could see his version of it. So yeah, that I don't. Okay, so I know the basic plot, and it's an Edgar Wright movie, so that's why. Well, but I don't really know much more about it.
Right. So
That's
I
why it wound up in a.
my only frame of reference for Edgar Wright is Baby Driver, and so
Haven't you seen Shaun of the Dead
oh yeah,
and Hot Fuzz?
yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's Edgar Wright.
okay,
So you have more of a frame of
yeah,
reference.
okay. Still kind of, I mean, even when he's not doing out and out comedy, still kind of lighthearted for
Yeah.
something like The Running Man, right?
Like I said, I haven't read the original book, so I don't know what the series is. But
Mhm.
The like I know they changed a lot of stuff for the original movie, but the basic premise of a man who goes on a game show where his basically it's a survival film where you got to get they've made a couple of films that uses the same kind of idea about a person on the run being so. I mean, I guess it's all a variation of their classic story, The Most Dangerous Game. A
Mhm.
couple of people being hunted and trying to survive. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen Last Night in Soho, which is Edgar Wright's most recent film.
Mhm.
But from what I understand, it's a little bit darker, but still kind of has his playful tone. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does with it. I mean, I'll be honest. You tell when I first saw that it was The Running Man being remade, I was like, oh, okay. Even though it's a story I thought I would like to remake, I'm like, I really don't want to see yet another remake. And then I found out it was being directed by Edgar Wright, and I'm like, okay, he might have a fresh take on it to make it interesting. So, and then the next one I'm going to talk about, Guillermo, where I can't speak tonight. Guillermo del
Guillermo.
Toro's Guillermo, thank you. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Um, I love his work. I haven't seen everything he's directed, but everything I've seen, I've loved. He knows, and especially when it comes to monster movies, I'm like, he knows how to handle monsters. So I am eager to see his take on the classic Frankenstein story. So, um, then Zootopia 2. I'm what can I say? I'm not a furry, but I really enjoyed the original Zootopia. I found an interesting
You don't have to
storyline.
be a furry. It's not a movie for furries.
Yes, it is. It's a movie for furries that everybody can enjoy.
Just because Disney weaponized furries in order to advertise the first one, which is true, look it up. Um, that doesn't mean that it's a movie for furries.
Okay. Well, all I know is I really enjoyed the first one. It was a lot better than I expected it to be. Like I went in to see it just because it's the next Disney film. I'll often, you know, go see him at the theater just for the hell of it. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think you went and saw it with me when we went and saw it. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
and I
that's
was
right.
like really pleasantly surprised about how good it really was. So
Mhm.
I don't really know anything about this, just that it's a sequel, and I enjoyed it. First one, so yeah, I think I'd like to see the next one. Hopefully, it'll be as good. Um,
Hmm.
so that's why it's on my honorable mentions.
Yeah,
Uh,
and so a thing about it being on your honorable mentions, we mentioned earlier that we shuffled the list a little bit. You took Zootopia 2 off of your list because you wanted to put Death of a Unicorn on there. I think if I had taken a moment and reevaluated my list at that point, I probably would have taken Zootopia 2 and put it on my list. Because, yeah, I think, it deserves to be there at least in the number one, at least in the number 10 spot. I'm at least more excited to see this than that movie that has Chris Pratt in it, and I couldn't even remember what it was when I first saw it. So, yeah, the only reason why this wasn't in my top 10 was because it was already in your top
10. Yeah. The last one on my honorable mentions list. So I've stated on this channel before, I am not a huge fan of horror. I don't find most of them scary. I think they're just too reliant on jump scares and gore, and they just are completely lacking in plot. But occasionally there'll be something that'll catch my eye. I was actually really surprised when I saw the trailer for this, how interesting this movie looked to me. This is Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. It is part of the, I believe they call it the Dark Fairy Tale universe, also jokingly referred to as the Pooniverse. It's by the makers of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and then the Mickey Mouse one, I think it's called the Mouse Trap. This actually generally looks kind of creepy, and its basic story is about a girl who goes on a venture to rescue her brother who was kidnapped by this dark, mysterious figure, Peter Pan. And I'm normally not my cup of tea, but I don't want to see this movie. I mean, the first Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, kind of caught my interest just for the novelty of it. Oh my God, somebody took Winnie the Pooh and turned it into a horror film. And then I saw a trailer for it and saw how cheaply it was made, and it just... I'm not into cheap splatter flick horror films, so it didn't really have any appeal to me.
Yeah.
So the novelty just kind of...
Was it... Are these the Asylum?
No, I don't think they're the Asylum. I'm not sure.
Probably because of the cheap reliance on a name and established IP. That's probably why I thought it was the Asylum, the studio that brought us Snakes on a Train and Atlantic Rim.
Okay.
I thought
so
would bring
it's
us
not the... I was going to say it's not the Dark Fairy Tale universe. It's the Twisted Childhood universe.
Oh.
And I'm not seeing... It's definitely not... Okay, so Jagged Edge Productions and ITN Studios.
Okay. So, yeah. The Asylum's not involved at all.
No. So, yeah. This is the... Like, if you know me and know my movie taste, this one is kind of the surprise entry, because this one kind of came out of nowhere for me. It's definitely not the type of film I normally want to see, but this one, and the production value is so much better than the other three movies in the Twisted Childhood universe. And maybe it's just because they're not having to make, anthropomorphic... I butchered the pronunciation of that. Can't talk tonight. Characters, they're dealing with human characters. So, yeah, that's...
It's pronounced Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say it again because I'll screw it up. I know I will.
If you're talking about anthropomorphic characters, you can just say anthro.
Okay. Well, then, yeah. So maybe that's why the production seems better, is because they're not having to do anthro characters.
Maybe. Moving on to my honorable mentions. My honorable mentions kind of fall into two categories. One being morbid curiosity, and the other being I couldn't put it on the list because I hadn't seen the first one. So that Wicked Part 2, like we've already talked about, we both hate when they break up movies into parts, and I was excited to go to the theater and watch Wicked this year. And then when I found it was part 1 of 2, I was like, nope, gonna wait until next year and watch it before I go see the second one. And then so the same situation for Nobody 2. Nobody 2 is on honorable mentions because my remedial viewing list still has Nobody on it. I just haven't seen it yet. Megan 2.0. God, I do not know why I have not seen this movie yet. Megan is a Blumhouse film. I love Blumhouse. They can do no wrong in my eyes, and so yeah, Megan should have seen it already. Haven't seen it, so Megan 2.0 couldn't go on the official list. Morbid Curiosity, Clowns in a Cornfield, definitely. Patton Oswalt has this joke that a good movie title lets you see a movie in your head for free, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like Texas, chainsaw, what the hell? Massacre, oh my god! Like you have a movie going in your head just with that premise. It could be better than what the actual movie is, but you have an idea of what that movie looks like. Clowns in a Cornfield, same sort of thing for me. Like clowns can be scary. Cornfield, we know from Children of the Corn. Cornfields can be scary. So clown in a cornfield, like yikes. So I'm I'm interested. I'm interested to see. The Accountant 2, 100% morbid curiosity, because Ben Affleck plays a high functioning autistic who's an accountant slash assassin. And so, I mean, so there's a lot effed up about that premise, but at the same time, I saw the first one, kind of want to see the second one just to see what they do with it or do to it or what. I just want to see what happens next. Um, Freakier Friday, um, I guess falls into the morbid curiosity category also, in that I saw the first one, and it was a nostalgia hit because I know the older version of Freaky Friday, and then for them to come back now as a legacy sequel and do it with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis is just freaking funny to me.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So those are my honorable mentions.
I have to at least give them props for the fact that they did get Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan back for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is definitely a legacy sequel we did not need.
Well, we didn't need the first one. Honestly.
Yeah. No, I'm happy with the original Freaky Friday from the 70s, was it?
Yeah.
Disney's. You're gonna make that move. That was like one of the first body swap comedies.
Yeah, the 80s and the 90s had a lot of those, the like clones of that movie.
Yeah, when I was doing research for this, there's another one that's coming out. That's the same thing, where two friends, one a rich guy and one like really in debt, swap places, do a body swap.
Oh.
All right, I don't know if it's supposed to be they swap. The way it's described, it sounds like it's a body swap thing, rather than switching places, where now you get to go live my life and I go live your life. The way it was described, it sounded like it was, now I'm going to go live your life in your body while you go live my life in my body. I feel myself wanting to go off on a rant about how Hollywood never does anything original, but then I am immediately reminded by the fact that on my list, about 70% is nothing but sequels and remakes. So it's like, I hate the fact that Hollywood doesn't make anything new, but I rarely support anything new myself. So there's only like 3
you're
movies.
Part of the problem.
There's only 3 movies on the list that are original films, and even those 3 are, how do I put it? They're very similar in themes and story to previous made movies. So they're really not all that original either. It's going to be some really good movies coming out this next year, and that's just what's on the calendar. I've actually looked at the IMDb release calendar since we put this list together, and it's already changed. Like there's been a few new things I've seen added, and a few things that have shuffled around, like pushed back a week or so. Thankfully, nothing that we chose has changed from where they were before, but some of the other movies I saw that were on the release calendar have shuffled a bit. So
interesting. So bit of a disclaimer. We put this episode together in a hurry, and we tried our best to use official movie posters where possible. There were some projects that are still in the works and don't have a movie poster, and so at that point we just grabbed pictures of the starring cast or the cover of the book, or something to have a visual element. There may have been a couple of spots where we inadvertently used fan art. If that's the case, we'll go back through this episode, and if credit needs to be given to an individual, we're both artists in our own right, and we understand how important it is to get credit for your work, and so we fully intend to give credit to anybody where we may have used their work.
Yeah, it's definitely important, to give credit, and we don't want to try to claim any sort of, creative credit for something that we didn't do. So, yeah, we will definitely get that posted down below on our YouTube post of this video. So we want the artists who created this stuff to get the credit they deserve.
This is unofficially our last episode of the year. It's the last episode we'll be recording for the year. Like I said, those other 2 episodes that are in process will be coming out before the end of December. But Stephen, anything you want to say to the nice people, before we end off the year?
I think I'm just going to go with the old standard: watch more movies.
Somehow I knew you were going to say that. Yeah,
stick with what you know.
Right, and that is all you know. is how to watch movies. I'm gonna say thank you to everybody who's like, even if you've contributed in the smallest of ways, even if you've just like come by the Facebook page and put a laughing emoji on one of our memes, or you know uh, made a comment about something in an episode that you liked. um, all that interaction is huge for us, and it's very encouraging. um, what I'm going to say is the holidays can be a happy time for most people, but they can be a sad time for some other people. So um, watch out for your own mental health. Watch out for the mental health and stability of others um, who may need it. And just everybody do your best to take care of yourself, please.
What he said.
I come up with something brilliant to say after you said, I'm gonna say the same thing I say in every episode. And then you're like, yeah, me too. You're like the jackass who goes to a Christmas party and says, oh, I didn't know we were supposed to bring you a gift. Can you put my name on that? Like,
Well, I'm sorry. You made me feel like a schmuck. Congratulations. Like,
I
yeah,
you
here he is
say,
being all deep and thanking everybody whom, yes, I am very grateful for also. And then you're like, make sure you take care of yourself. And I'm like, and all I'm saying is watch more movies. Gee, I'm such a straight, wonderful guy.
you said I made you feel like a schmuck. My interpretation of that is that I just made you more self-aware.
Oh, well, here's to a great new year.
Here's to that. And I look forward to doing this again in 2025.
Definitely.